All right, we got to find the right window, and then we should be good. What's going on, everybody? Just give me 1 minute here to get set up because I got notes on the old iPhone, and I want to be able to communicate with you guys. Let me see if I can just pull the chat over so I'm not on a million different phones. All right. And bear with me in 1 second here when I figure out where I put the actual. Here we go. I think it's any of these. There it is. Okay. All right. And let me pull it up over and we will get going. Let me know how the sound is, everybody, and then we will jump into it. I thought it was a pretty good episode overall. We'll get into the ruse storyline and all that. What's up, Keen McKay? Rule number 1, don't fuck with Oleg. Yeah. So let me go ahead and pull the chat up on, let's see, on a separate little area here. Okay. Yeah, no, absolutely, Keen, absolutely. Let me know, guys, how the sound is, out or not. But yeah, let's go over to the notes. So there's a few really, really cool sequences in this episode for sure. And it drug a little bit. I won't lie. It's my first attempt at doing like a initial reaction because I'm trying to do more polished videos and less like live streams or rant videos. So this is kind of what I figure is the only appropriate time to do a live stream is when people just literally don't have any other content or any other place medium to go and fill that fandom urge. So we'll do like an initial talk and just off the cuff stuff here, and then hopefully I can get a good video out for you. So we start off with Ivar learning from Oleg. Or is he trying to learn, or is he observing him? Meaning, like, is he looking at this guy at least at the beginning of the episode in a sense of, okay, this is a guy that's got his kingdom in hand, he's got things under control, this is somebody I could learn off of? Or is he studying him as like a chess player and thinking, how am I gonna is he looking at himself as a captive still? I think by the end of the episode, the symbolism for the puppet and Oleg is there. There's a lot of cool symbolism with Oleg that we'll get into, and Olaf as well. What is Olaf's plan? We'll just go through it really quick, meaning the list, and we'll go to the details. What is Olaf's plan? As Keen said, don't fuck with him. Yeah, that looked like Greek fire for sure, brother. Hold on. Why does this keep open down? All right. Yeah, and if it's too loud, let me know. Thanks, Living Anniver. Yeah, it's kind of it's tough to really go against a guy like that because he just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So he's a wild card. But they start off their conversation with one of those classic fate discussions about we're all just pawns in the game. The gods already know the score. We can just still play it the best we can type of deal. This puts Harold in a pretty precarious situation, pretty precarious situation, because we have to figure, even if Bjorn does save him, which we have to figure he does get out of this situation of eventually he will escape in some way or be let go. But like, where does his power stand after that? After, once you can like take somebody captive and hold them, kind of like lowers you a few notches there. So we'll get to that. So Bjorn definitely being tested. So the guy's like trying not to, sleep with every single woman that he sees. Oddly enough, he decides to do it when he becomes a king. There's that old saying, or phrase, the king's hunger, meaning their appetite, their sexual appetite. Catherine the Great was frowned upon for her, ways, her sexuality, her vigor. But, it's very misogynistic. A man is, it's a king's appetite. Look at his vigor. And it's, shamed on the other side. But so he's trying to stray from that type of behavior and be a good king, be what his father wasn't, in my opinion, and just be different from Ivar. And it's interesting because Penor, and that's his girlfriend in real life. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. But she is the only one, if you notice, that is giving Bjorn something other than full faith. And that might seem weird, but the way I look at it is everybody's giving Bjorn a lot of trust, right? Like everybody's like, you got this, you got this. And I don't think that, I think he appreciates that, but that might not be what he's looking for. Like he wants somebody to advise him, not just like encourage him or, have, like, I think it freaks him out a little bit that everybody's so like, you got this, excuse me. Gunhild is like, you got it. Anything you do is the right thing to do. You're the king. But Pinar is like, hey, again, this is kind of like recycling and rehashing what happened with Ivar and Freydis, but it's like, I will make you a stronger king. So not only is it the sexual appetite that brings him there, but I think more so, it's somebody that's saying, at least, this is a guy that might need some help, right? Like nobody else, everybody is giving him full confidence, and maybe I can find a problem or an insult in a bouquet of roses. But I think that this is an issue in what they're pushing, is that this blind, undying faith, at least from Kattegat, is not what Bjorn feels comfortable with. He maybe subconsciously or consciously, at least in my opinion, want somebody to be like, hey, this is what we could do, this is what you should do, not everything you do is golden, stuff like that. Because a lot of yes men around you is never a good thing. So I believe a few things lead him to that bed. Of course, his hunger, the king's hunger. So Lagertha attempting to live a peaceful life, and again, we'll go through these quickly, and then I'm gonna go to like the major. Peacefully, and finding fame follows her almost more than it did when she was queen, right? So it's like this stigma around her, which is a good one, this aura, I should say, around her is stronger. It is, these people are idolizing her because now she is, she's a goddess walking amongst men. She is encountered by this whole town of women that have been widowed by war, and we have to probably consider that some of that war might have been directly caused. She was a part of most of them, and some of it directly caused by her. So that's a little bit of catch-22 there. They seem to idolize her again. Like I think that there's no regular living for Lagertha, of course, but we see a lot of mirroring of her past with Torvi. Uba wants the children, or Lagertha wants the children to stay with her, and Uba can finally, give her Bjorn's kids, his kids, or whoever else kids. That guy's like running a foster home. But Torvi is evidently pregnant with their first child. So I'm sorry, none of those are actually their kids. And he says that he doesn't want her to go to Iceland with them because she's pregnant and all this, and she just takes a total just shit on him for it. This whole I'm strong, I'm sick of men telling me what to do and all this. This is reminiscent of Lagertha's past, not only with Ragnar, but Kelf as well. If you remember, she did similar things. She stayed home with for Ragnar. She went into battle when she was with Kelf and was supposedly pregnant with his child. So it's interesting. They sequence that scene in with Bjorn and actually Torvi doing the sacrifice is sequenced in with Bjorn finally falling prey to Penor. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, but the bedding of her. So it's like future, past, the connections, all the threads. Where are they now? She is just as much becoming Lagertha as the events from her past are being showcased with Bjorn's behavior. We have to remember that once this was Bjorn's whole motivation and all this. I thought it was kind of a cool connection. We get to see her climbing up the ladder and getting to that Lagertha level and doing the whole sacrifice, and then Bjorn is also sacrificing his, if he has any morals, whatever. But yeah, it's showing a little bit of the future in the past. Bjorn seems to be kind of static. Let's see. Testing. Okay, your link has been shared to Geek Chat one live as well. Oh, thank you. So I thought that was kind of a cool, at least aesthetic. So, Bjorn is, being reinforced. Torvi for turns. Okay. So we have Oleg and Ivar speaking of the Saxons. So that was interesting. It was almost like kind of like a wink and a nod, in my opinion. We see Oleg speaking about, or Oleg, sorry, that you have to make plans, that you have to wait, you have to be patient, for England. And he must first take care of his brother. So again, these events in this episode, I enjoyed the episode. Again, I was taking notes to do a rewatch, but I think it held up. And there was, maybe upon rewatch, I would find these a little bit too on the nose, but I mean, the correlations between these guys are just dead on at this point. So, first you must take care of his brother. So clearly emotion drives, emotion drives us all, but more so emotion drives Oleg. More than logic, because he's attacking this brother, and this is just, again, spot on for what was going on with Ivar and what is still going on with Ivar. It's not about keeping the lands in England, it's not about all of the gain they made over there. They all start doing this petty shit at home. So that was interesting. Oleg's brother is killed as he enjoys, or he's not killed, he's attacked as he enjoys. You can tell I wrote that when I was watching it. He was killed as he was watching a performance. No, he was attacked when watching that performance. Thought that was a cool aesthetic. I think they have done a good job with the ruse, the people. I think that I'm not an expert on the Baltic states, Ukraine, or what becomes Russia, but it seems the armor and all that seems to be fairly good, and Vikings is not always that great with it, but I'm not Shadversity or anything like that, nor would I want to be, but I think it looks cool. I thought it was a decent fight. I like he got bludgeoned with a blunt mace, and he went out. So and we'll get to that. Lagertha tells the riddles to the children about Hembelar. This is actually a cool connection. I don't know a lot about the Norse mythology, but the character in which she's talking about, or the man, supposedly the god, he possesses this resounding form of like foresight and like being able to see things that are coming. He has like keen eyesight and hearing. He keeps watch for invaders. So this ties in to what's happening with Lagertha, like how these invaders are definitely coming because of Bjorn's thing. So she's telling them this story about this mythological figure that had this keen eyesight and was utilized for his knowledge and being able to pretty much be like a guard of the nation. And also he is the one that foretold for Ragnarok. So he has this whole connection with the narrative, with what's going on with Lagertha and what's happening, I think, overall in the series, as we'll see with the ending with the Greek fire, about, kind of what they would envision Ragnarok to be, the fall of their religion and the rise of Christianity, even through one of their own. So, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty interesting connection. It's essentially her telling a story to the children at its base level of somebody that has like keen foresight and is able to see what is happening around them and prepare for it. And that's exactly what she needs to do. Of course, she finds out now that these widows have had now their children killed, arguably again because of actions loosely connected to Lagertha. So that's another one right there. So she doesn't dig up the sword. I wouldn't really say dig up the sword. She takes the leaves off it, so that and she becomes this mother/warrior that she's always been. And I marked this down in my notes. Game of Thrones did a lot of stuff like to try to like push like female empowerment. And I felt like a lot of it just wasn't true empowerment. Westworld does some of the same things because it's always just physical prowess, and it's like, oh, we can fight just like the men, and any type of intellect or cunning by any other means, any other types of skill sets that would be attributed to a formidable person, a powerful person, empowering them, are thrown to the wind. It's like, oh, fuck your intelligence, I can hold a spear too. So I kind of believe they embrace this, in a kind of, maybe I'm reading into it. It takes a little bit of a stretch, but the symbolism of her looking over the children and then unburying that sword is like, all mothers have to be warriors. I kind of took from it, and I'm not reaching for it. Like, I am a big advocate for true representation, meaning I don't like things that are full of diversity that is just shoehorned in, and it's not authentic because it's not graded, or the parts aren't actually in their essence for that that culture, it's just, that's not empowering. You can't just, that's just an insult. So I really do look at these things pragmatically, and I think that Lagertha is a fairly prominent and probably a good example of successful female empowerment on television. And of course, a lot of her prowess has to do with strength, but I think that the sentimental stuff and the mothering and the mantle that she takes on as a queen, as a mother, and now as a savior of sorts, it's like almost like a prophet walking amongst the people. I think it's touching. I think it works. So another thing that we get into is, this is some symbolism that goes into it. Oleg is deciding the fate of his brother, right? He's holding a dog, that dog, when he is talking to him, and he's petting that dog. Now he's having the conversation with his brother about if he can trust him. So meaning his brother is no threat to him now. He's acting kind. That dog, he pets him. Everything's good. These things are all done for a reason. Trust me, they didn't have a trainer on set. They didn't bring in the animal people in this dog to do this scene and have that dog nip at him for no reason. So his brother's telling him, you can trust me, just as he pets that dog. If you notice, that dog then, as soon as the dog gets a chance, what does it do? It snips at him. So meaning, you can trust me until I get close enough that I can bite you. So not that influenced Oleg. I think Oleg was always going to do what he was going to do, right? Like, I don't think he was ever going to take the high road on this one. But I think it's like it's meta within the narrative. It's like, yeah, he feels this little doggy is rolling on his belly right now. But as soon as he gets a chance, he's like a snip at him. I thought that was well done. Also, again, maybe too on the nose. Again, I'll have to do my rewatch. But man, I mean, Bitsek and Ivar totally had the relationship of the same situation with that dog reference. He was, when they go back to Kattegat together, when Vitshek literally jumps ship, that's all Ivar does, is calls him a dog, right? It's all about that. Like, he barks at him and everything. And there's several times in which they bark at each other during this episode. I don't know. Let me know, and I'm getting to the chat right now, what you guys thought about that. If it's too on the nose, if it's too much of a mirror, because there's something to be said for subtlety. Take a look at this. Yeah, she's a deaf warrior. Mothers are protectors of their children, so we are kind of warriors. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, is that I feel that Lagertha's depiction is done well, because yes, she can fight, and yes, she is strong, but the mothering and being a mother too, whether or not, in most cases not, especially, thank God, in this time, you don't need to pick up a sword or a gun. But, you are protectors of your children, and you're protectors of those. You are strength, and strength comes in so many different ways other than physical. And I think that, although on the surface you could look at her and be like, well, what are you talking about, Justin? She's just like Brienne of Tarth, I'd argue the differ, that's a far more nuanced character. And I one thing Hearst is very good at is sentimental sequences and imagery and symbolism. I think that, that's one thing he does very, very well. And I don't know, just the angle and the way in which he held the sword and the way that in which they spliced it with the children, the editing was on point. I liked it. And like I said, I'm not looking to be like the woke dude at all. I give credit where credit's due, and I saw it. Yeah, I do kind of have such a ways with words when I can hear them. So yeah, we got Ivar and Oleg making their plans. I want to know what you guys think about how much more. I saw in another shout out, great group of people on Facebook, the Aftermath crew for Vikings. I'll link you guys again. I love, I had to go away from the live thread a little bit to do these notes when I was watching along. But man, like I really enjoy you guys. You guys provide great perspective, insight. It's not toxic. It's just a good time. I highly suggest that you guys join that group. I don't. So yeah, I saw a few of you guys though say that you were sick of the Russia story thread. So I would like to know how you feel about that. Meaning, like, how many more episodes of it can you take? How long before they invade? Like, I feel 2 more episodes of that would be the limit. I don't want much more than that. I think that we are at the point, this is the catalyst, him literally seeing the brother in that grotesque way. I think that that's Ivar's, turning point, at least to start making some changes, but he's not gonna, he obviously has to go, because we've seen it, to Kattegat with him. But I think that at the beginning of this episode, he was still looking at him, and when they were discussing leadership, and it wasn't all. It was another example of sometimes some pretty subpar writing on Hearst's part, where they, he's discussing how he knew about the sister, which also has a connection with Ivar's relationships with his brothers and so forth, and a few other things. And he said, I forget what exactly Ivar like acted surprised about, but it was kind of like the same thing when Bjorn didn't want to go look at the battlefield, the ground in which they were working, going to fight on, and Ivar did, and that made him the stratician, like the strategist, the strategical mastermind, because he literally wanted to do what people like since 3000 like BC, like the Sumerians were doing, like looking at the fucking ground is the most important thing. So like, oh, this guy must be smart. I kind of got that vibe with Oleg, with what they were talking about in Ivar, was like, how'd you know this? How'd you know this? And it was just like a little bit like, all right, this guy's all not that clever, but what they're pushing is he is still looking at him in the beginning of this episode, I believe, in a sense of a little bit trying to figure him out, because Ivar is, a little bit malicious as well. And a little bit you can always learn from people. He's a curious guy like his father, so he's learning from Oleg. But I think by the end of the episode, he is going to come to the conclusion that all research that needs to be done in the future, which will happen, and let me know again how much you guys want to see that or not, is going to be purely for the sake of getting over on this guy. I think that it's he's lost any type of sympathetic perspective on Oleg, because he sees his way doesn't work. He sees he's overly cruel, and with the child, and the child points right to the puppet and says Oleg. So I found that to be very touching, and again, that's a link that works. I think that what's happening with Ivar works. Vitchek is another thing. That's a completely different story, but is it a completely different story? Because they seem to be threading it together with the Silk Road. I don't know what to take from the decision to not only advocate for him taking on that mission and putting Kattegat on the map. They're literally like selling Jesus to Rio here. This is like marketing 101 in Kattegat here. They want to get him on the map. They're going to bring in some Madison Avenue firm sooner than later. But yeah, he's clearly not the guy to do it. And I was very surprised that, he is said to go to the Silk Road. That's what they want him to do. Now, it connects with history, with what the historical accounts, take them as you will for what they're worth. I think that it's probably somewhat correct. He does end up, kind of kicking it in the ruse, and that could happen. But you would have to believe that if he did travel on the Silk Road, it would be past the time that Ivar was there, meaning Ivar would probably already be back in Kattegat, so I don't see the point of it. He's clearly a mess due to, is it Torah? I had to look at my notes here, but the unfortunate young lady Thora, who was burned by Ivar's men. That was pretty grotesque. And again, Ivar made a tongue-in-cheek thing before that. He's like, oh, it'd be cruel if I burned them. So all these behavioral traits are present in Oleg. I'd say just with a hint more of just fucking just vicious intent, malice, and also Ivar's the shoes on the other foot now, his shoes that he walks around in so much. So it's I don't know. It seems like they should be smart enough to be like, okay, Vitchek needs maybe a spiritual journey, but metaphorically, not tangible. Don't go walking around he's a madman at this point. He is the embodiment of all these guys' emotions. Everybody that is just walked past war and walked on to the next thing, he has just kept it and held it, and it broke him. He doesn't have anything that's his. He doesn't have anybody that just loves him in his mind. Thora was one, he doesn't really have a role to play. So maybe the Silk Road could be the turning point for that, but I don't know. It's are they really gonna send him there? I mean, it does add up to the historical accounts, like I said, but come on, Hearst, are you gonna not say fuck history this time? That makes no sense to me narratively. And very rarely would I object to something that would at least go along with the mythology or the Saxon accounts. But I'm not digging that. I don't know, because like I said, it seems like they would just miss each other. There's no point to it. If they didn't just miss each other, I think that would kind of be work. But it is what it is. So Bjorn is going on his noble endeavor, right? Good intentions pave the path to hell. We have him going against Oleg, who is a madman. You cannot, he's the wild card. You cannot predict what this guy is going to do. You see Harold again questioning his place, not just being in captivity, not looking so hot, but again, what does it say? It's kind of like Tywin Lannister says about Tyrion, that the son of ice and fire all the time. It's a lot of good connections. What does it say if somebody can take one of our family members, with no consequences? That is not going to play well. Like, you aren't going to be looked upon too highly after that, or at least be able to hold and achieve any height of superiority over people. You're not gonna have that essence that you need to be king. Now, it is interesting that little person is named Canute, and he says he'll make him a king because one of Harold's ancestors, or descendants, is a future king named Canute, and Canute the Great, and he actually is the one that is pretty much responsible for the North Sea Empire, and we should get him in the next series, Vikings Valhalla, on Netflix. So there is a tie in there, a little tongue-in-cheek, little wink as well. But Canute does bring up, he says, well, like, how much power do you really have? So Bjorn is on his mission there. Again, it seems a little odd. I don't know if I missed it, but what was going on with those guys that didn't trust him right away? Did they know what was up? Or did they just not trust Bjorn? But this is a good example of, like, Bjorn doing, like, everything that you would think you should do. Like, he's going to go do the right thing. He's not going to do this. He's going to, honor this pact that he has with Harold. And it's, he's in a ring of fucking fire. Let's go to the chat right here. For years, there's been a road people travel and we do not know. The only things we know is how did something from England end up in China. There are ideas that the Vikings made it to Australia and mixed with the original people of Australia. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I mean, yeah, absolutely. They are seafaring people. How much they cultivate culture is up to debate for the people that consider themselves of that ethnicity. You'll see that with the Rus, a very Slavic oriented people. So yeah, I do think that it makes sense to get him there. This seems a little bit, I don't know, I guess it's fine. It just seems like it's so close with Ivar, with the Silk Road, that it'd be better if you would have went there, like, just a little bit after Ivar comes. But I don't know. I see a lot of people saying that they don't like what's happening with Russia, which, to be fair, I would say that in no way, in my opinion, is it Iceland, because I wanted to just shoot myself in the head every single minute of Iceland. And this is intriguing because it's character development for Ivar. And there's a lot of character that needs to be developed for him. So I don't mind it. But again, I need to do my rewatch and see how on the nose this was. But it's not terrible. And also, let's consider that we have seen 3 episodes of Vikings now with very little battle. And Vikings, even the glory days, notice upon rewatch, they don't hold up that well without at least some action. And yes, we got a little bit, but that was a very short sequence. The aesthetic was good in the Rusland when they attacked his brother. And then we have the end, which is pretty cool. It looks like Greek fire. I'll get to that in a minute. But, I think that these episodes hold up. And if they hold up with very little action, that shows you that they're doing great development work with their character. They're doing great character work. We have Egyptian hieroglyphics that are dated 3,000 years ago near Sydney, and can't explain how that. I mean, my answer is always, Amanda, is always Irish monk. They're the answers for how everything got everywhere. But yeah, no, it's fascinating. I mean, we have people over there at Oak Island. My dad watches that show, and they're trying to figure out, what's in that money pit, which, nobody ever ever. There's never been a treasure map in history that's ever been a real treasure map, because people don't bury shit and then make a map. And second, people don't usually like bury shit that deep because they need to get it again. But what I'm getting at is they're over there trying to find stuff, and they found some pretty cool shit around it. But we still don't know half of what happened in Egypt. We don't know how, we got the pyramids and all that. We don't know so much. We lose so much throughout history. Evolution is not linear, so it is interesting. And again, why the show has to take some liberties and stuff like that. But the seafaring cultures and raiding people definitely, spread ideas, traders, and all this, and they seemingly want to put Kattegat on the map. Now, my understanding was Kattegat had been put on the map during the 10 years that happened in the act break. Let's see. And, Kattegat is technically in Jutland. It's like a sliver of land. I mean, I don't want to bitch about that all the time, but it is what it is. I still find it to be interesting. I think the only reasoning for this premise is to give like Bjorn like this juxtaposition between the warrior Bjorn, the wanderlust Bjorn, and the freaking like madman Bjorn. Like I said, like Jesus, the statue of Jesus over Rio was literally a marketing campaign. It worked. So I don't know. Is what it is. So we see them go over Bjorn, meaning in his group of faithful-ish companions, right, to Olaf's kingdom, which is actually a very large kingdom. I can't pronounce the name. I won't even try. I'll link it. But you see this, and again, I'm not sure if I missed it, but if those guys were overtly, if they're just discretionary, or if they were overtly like sabotaging Bjorn, but they seemed to know they were coming, right? That was a pretty elaborate dispense of Greek fire, which I'm assuming it is Greek fire into the, what they knew to encircle them. They knew where they would come. They knew about how many they would have. Some of them seemed to die. So, they are in the flames. So I don't really know how he's going to get out of this one. I know he will get out of it, but how this will affect his leadership, I don't know. Again, I've said that the moving parts usually, or in this case, should probably go Bjorn gets Harold out, or at least this whole the significance of him even trying to get him out, because it doesn't look like it's going swimmingly, all puns intended, will form the bond. And then Olaf is the bad guy. He's your big bad. So you have Bjorn and Harold defeat him, and then Harold can sit on the throne there, meaning Bjorn can go do what he does best and be wanderlust, and you don't feel like it's defeated. You don't feel like it's a loss, right? Because we have been endeared to Harold, and I do believe that they're going to honor his place in history, because fuck history, right, Hers? But I do actually feel, because it makes sense within this narrative, within the story that they're telling, the way they've framed it. So we need a way to have Harold be dominant in this region and have the boys move out and not feel like they're walking away from failure. That's what I'm saying. And I feel the best way to do that is to unite these men even further in the attack, in the the struggle against Olaf. You have that external conflict going against Harold and Bjorn. It unifies them even stronger. And then when Bjorn goes away, because let's bring up a hypothetical here, Lagertha could end up dying at the hands of these men. Now, arguably, I think it's pretty clear. And Kane, if you're still in the chat, thank you for that very, very lovely shout out and putting the graphics up on the screen. That means a lot, man. I know it takes time and stuff like that, so that's a nice gesture, and I really appreciate it. But for my video, when I was talking about Bjorn made all the worst choices possible, is what I'm getting at. So she is to die by a son of Ragnar. Okay, so I take this prophecy pretty loose, but would she definitely be? Could you justify saying she dies by a son of Ragnar if she dies by one of these dogs, these ghosts, these marauders that he's created, right? Is that her dying at the hands of her son? There's a little bit of justification for that, but then you got to throw in the whole Rollo situation where they've kind of put that into the mix. So is he a son of Ragnar, or is it? I feel that might have just been for that episode, but it's an interesting take on it. But once Lagertha dies, which she will, whether it's by fighting these men or not, which I do believe it will, I'll put my money on it. And I do believe that would be loose enough and vague enough, because prophecy is always self-fulfilled, meaning people hear prophecies and their prophetic beliefs in their fervor drives them to, fulfill that themselves. And by the end of like these stories, then you can like take a pencil and be like, all right, so what went down? What exactly happened? All right, and what did the doctor say? Okay, so this makes this person, okay, yeah, they fit this bill, blah blah blah. She's gonna die at the hands of her son. Her son exiled these men merciless, without any hope of redemption, drove them to be murderers. She gets murdered by them, dies by her son, bam bam bam, you're good. And that also, I believe, will be such a shame and such a hit for Bjorn that he will leave. So these are all things that I don't want, meaning emotionally want, but I want for the story, because that's what makes sense. Again, Harold must sit on the throne, so you need to get him there. You need to get him there in a way that we have an empathetic perspective of him. We look upon him as somebody that's on our side, one of the good guys in this bad world. So he sits on the throne because they beat the bigger bad, Olaf. That's good. We're good with that. Nobody feels hurt because Bjorn leaves. Bjorn has to leave. It just doesn't fit him to sit there forever. It doesn't suit him. I think that it's been clear that it doesn't suit him. He leaves. We're good. Why? Because Lagertha's death is the catalyst for that. What does it drive him to do? It drives him to go and do what he meant to do earlier, venture out, be this explorer and so forth, and it can honor kind of the histories. You also need the other sons to leave. So, Ivar's coming back there under precarious situation, under precarious, means, and it's probably going to end up bad for everybody involved. But again, that's another chance for Harold to band together and save that that land, and then have the brothers go and focus back on to the Saxon problem for them, or the situation over there, because we could have a situation in which we find out that, something has happened there, whether it is through Vitshek, because they're talking about having him go out and actually, make these ties, and they do bring up England, the settlement over there. Now, I don't know if they'll go as far. I wouldn't put it past them to say that, Alfred, does an Eckbert and goes against it, but that could happen. The point is, you need a catalyst to get Bjorn out of there. That's clearly going to happen, in my opinion. And you need a nice tying up of loose ends. I think that this all explains it. You have these battles, it'll get a little bit messy when Oleg comes, but I believe that Ivar, and let me know, I think Ivar will betray him. At least he will not be on his side, and he will have to show restraint against his lesser qualities, meaning his brothers are most likely going to want to cut his head off for everything he's done, especially if he arrives with the ruse. So he is most likely going to be shown in a light that's very empathetic, if not sympathetic, because he is going to be the one showing restraint, because he is going to try to help. He is not going to be on. He will be in the same boat, but not in the same boat. Log is what I'm getting. So I thought it was a pretty good episode, guys. I mean, 7 out of 10. I think the last two are 8 out of 10s for me. The Rush, the Rusland, I'll give it 2 more episodes. I mean, that is the way that I would plot it out. Let's see. So what's going on in the chat? Do you like the direction for the character? Do you like the direction for character development so far this season? Yeah, I do. I do. I absolutely do. I think that it fits. A lot of people are facing a lot of resistance, both externally and internally. Character development is achieved through resistance, meaning forces going against them, backs being up against the wall. Characterization is who they say they are. Character is their actions, what you say you are, and then what you actually do. The only way to achieve this is through actual compromising conflict, whether it be internal, as we see with Vitshek. I don't think that's the best, but I think that it just feels a little bit overwhelming because it's isolated. But I think that it would speak true to the situation in the sense of that he's emotionally embraced all of the worst things that you could, he's not walking away from this with a warrior's mentality. He's got a human's normal, regular, just dude that's just, he's all fucked up. The only problem with that is you don't want to watch Leaving Las Vegas, like the first half of that movie, like for 8 episodes in a row. So I would say the character development, Amanda, so far is very well done. Now, do they know when to pull the plug on some of these threads? And that means actually merge them and have a change, a catalyst that puts them on a different path, or at least knocks them out of some of the situations they're in, because you guys are right. Russia can't be, in my opinion, more than 2 more episodes. That means they need to be set in sail by the end of episode 5, like preferably by the next one, but they could do 2, because now we're seeing Ivar looking at Oleg in a different light, so the dynamic changes there. So there's still a story to be said, and there's still, to be fair, there's a lot of character development needs to happen with Vitchek. Something's got to knock him out of his pity party, and I'm not downing on him. So probably, PTSD is a very serious thing. I'm happy that it's being depicted, but, it gets to be a little bit much when it's just hammered in if it keeps on going this way. It's because it's hard. It's incoherent. That is a horrible state. So we understand it now. And this is a television show, not life. So we understand what he's going through now. It's been made clear. It is not a disservice to it. If you want a realistic depiction of PTSD to the nose, then, you watch a documentary or go help at a local aid station, like a local community outreach program or something like that, which would be something good to do. But that people frequently mistake human psychology and human behavioral traits for things that should be exactly tit for tat depicted in television and in film. This is a condensed version of life. This is life. Stories are life in hindsight. We look back at look back at your last 10 years of your life. You could probably structure that. You definitely could structure it into a 3-act, meaning beginning, middle, end. And when you were living it, as we live now, we live in the now. We live in a reactionary time. We react. We don't necessarily always go out with this big, we know what we want. We have goals. We have motivations. We don't know what we need. So story is condensed. Story is given to us, filtered out of all this, because a real depiction of a lot of things wouldn't be like this. None of this would be like this. You think you have downtime now. What about the days that you wake up and you don't know what the fuck to do with yourself? So, not to babble on like that, but I see a lot of that within not within this fandom, within fandom in general. People that are very tied to characters. They mistake themselves. They mistake the intent, and they mistake the way in which characters work within the machine of a story. It's can't take a Freudian approach to these things. You can't start psychoanalyzing too much character. Studies are very intriguing. I love doing them, but you have to do them within the narrative, is my point. So, the character development is good. So it might sound a little bit like dickish to say, well, the PTSD, we get it, now move on. But no, you've depicted it. You made us aware of it. You've showcased it. Good for you, because it's relevant. It would be something that is likely to happen. I think it's an intriguing storyline, but you got to get him doing something else now, because again, this isn't real life. This isn't about, oh man, I don't want to, be bogged down with the realities of, no, we live in the real world. So Vitchek most likely will be knocked out of this fugue state by Bjorn's situation. And that would be that. If I was in the writer's room, if they brought me in on spec, that's what I would do. I'd be like, well, now he needs to do, what is his call to action? Lagertha has had her call to action. She has her call. It's very overt, and there's nothing wrong with that. I thought it was beautiful. Vitchek will be this, right? Especially if Uba goes to Iceland, which I think is a weird move, because Uba's the one that did get East Anglia. I really wish they would stick to that, but it is what it is. Let's go back to the chat. So yeah, I mean, it's I think it's going fairly well. I think that it'd be hard to predict how Oleg will meet his fate, or if they will have him meet it. Meaning, will Oleg actually die? Because he doesn't die for a very long time in history, but again, it is Vikings. Just like Rollo. I believe Rollo is one of the characters that will reemerge and will be a connecting thread for Bjorn once Lagertha dies. I don't think Rollo will die. We won't see him die in this series, is my prediction, because it's not necessary. I think that it's almost because of the project that they have coming up, like Valhalla and his, great grandson, William the Conqueror, William the Bastard, being in it, and I believe that he will be shooting cameos for that, meaning visions. I think that to keep up that that sense of connection, they won't kill him. I mean, it could still work. It is. I do have a video that I'm working on that is showcasing all the deaths in the Tudors, in which Hearst frames in the way he does so beautifully, with all the symbolism of, the white horse, the ravens. He uses a lot of birds. He uses a lot of, if you notice in Vikings, he does the same thing with the drink, the red wine that is spilled. It is always associated with your base desires throughout life, and your base flaws, as well as like a journey that he takes you through visually, and it's very uniform but very different in its subtleties and nuances of each shows are subtle differences but big differences, because I do believe he really sticks to the Norse mythology and the Norse symbolism for when he does Vikings, and I really think that he actually either brought somebody in or knows a shit ton about Tudor times, as far as their art and what represented, what certain birds were looked upon as, what certain flowers were considered. Some are pretty obvious, but hopefully that video will eventually get out. But it's interesting. But usually you got a horse running in slow motion. You see good times get spoiled, wine spilling. You see what could have been, what had been passed up, the folly of youth and everything else, and the joys of that folly. And you see, the light flashing before your eyes, and you see it in a very cinematic, thematic, and effective way. And then when you look into it, like I have, and you go down a rabbit hole, hopefully the video will be a condensed version of that rabbit hole. I'm back out of it. But yeah, we'll close this up soon. I can't thank you guys enough. I just wanted to do something right after the show, so I would get my ADD down enough to do a video that is polished and is good, and try to make a guy like my boy Kerri McKay there proud, because nobody does it better than him. He is the king of this fandom for sure, and he does the great videos that cover the upcoming episode, which is a genius way. See, I can't just rip him off, so I'll do the initial reaction. But that's genius, because you can get that out because there's less to work with, but he can do a beautiful analysis of that, and that's what we're all looking forward to anyways, is the next episode. And then a few days later come out with a nice, insightful, beautifully edited and polished video. So really admire his work and appreciate his friendship. And yeah, that's hopefully what will happen for Vikings. I'll try to do these as much as I can, but more importantly, I want to do one video a week that is a comprehensive look and gives you some insight into the episode that is worth watching, because there's a lot of bullshit on YouTube. So I'm trying not to do live streams as much, only when they're needed, which I think they're only needed before or after a show at this point. Can't be live streaming in the middle of the week, 3 days after a show, to talk about it. It's like, at that point, I need to keep writing my script, keep editing, and doing it that way. But I do like communicating with you guys. I like connecting with you guys. The Vikings fandom, it goes a long way. It really does. It goes a long way as far as what you'll put up with this show. I like that I can joke about this show and people don't get all pissed off. You do it at the game. I can make silly videos and people like them. I can say, have Michael Hearst, in a very probably semi-offensive British accent, but whatever, say fuck history all the time. But I admire the man still. He is, he's accomplished a lot. And this is a beautiful story. And you take the good with the bad. So, yeah, with I think that the video that at this point, before my rewatch, I can say we'll probably strongly focus on Lagertha's situation, and then the dynamic also with Ivar and the subtle nuances and symbolism, symbolic gestures and actions that happened in the ruse. Bjorn is very interesting and intriguing. There's nothing wrong with that. I just don't think there's that much to say about it other than the initial aspects of him, trying to fight back that lustiness of his and not have a king's hunger, to be a king and do everything, by the book. And the person that he ends up in bed with is the only person that, now she doesn't say, hey, you're fucking shit up, but everybody else is just giving him just, which is great. It's a vote of confidence. They're saying, hey, you got it. But she's saying, again, you need me, I'll make you a great king. It is his girlfriend in real life, though. But it's just, I feel that he is vulnerable. So, but how far of how many hurdles do we have to jump over? How many strings do we need to act like we don't see to say in the puppet show to say we're shocked that Bjorn was not faithful to his wife, and he, they have an open relationship going, so they're putting the keys in the hat and they're having a swingers party, whatever the fuck that was. They're in whatever the Norse did back then. They're so we have some Egyptian. Okay, so let me check the chat one more time. Thank everybody. Let's see. Did he say Cammy? Like the direction? Did he say cameo? Cammy, did you have a question? No, yeah, and thank you, Cammy. Definitely. Wonderful support as always. And Miss Duncan the Tall, hey, we are closing up here unless anybody has any questions, but we are not going to drag this on. It's only the initial reaction to it. But of course, if you do have any questions or, insight that you would like to provide, then feel free to provide it. But yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but wanted to say hi. Yeah, no, so the question you have is, should you watch it? That's the question I'm making up for. Yeah, you definitely should. And again, I don't really like giving us, I guess I'll just give a scale for every single episode this season, because that'll eventually mean something. I always find it funny when YouTubers 8 out of 10, I did that. And if you haven't done that consistently, what the fuck does that mean to you? I give it 7 Justins out of 8. Right. So I'd say this is a notch down from the first 2, but it's a 7 out of 10, man. It's a 7 out of 10, and it's virgin maybe on rewatch of being higher because of how much of a sucker I am for Lagertha's storyline. So I found a lot of the slight nuances to be also done to be very impactful, and I think Hearst is on his game. Again, I'm gonna say, keep driving, Hearst. Keep your hands on that wheel, and usually I'm slapping his hands off, taking the old sword real early on with Hearst and trying to get him on the right path. But I think he's got it right now. He's a professional. He's got it. So yeah, look forward to the video. Subscribe if you have not. If you'd like to support creativity, guys, $3 a month on Patreon from you makes a huge difference to me. If you can afford it and it's not a hardship, and I truly mean that, because I'm not gonna lie, a cup of coffee from Starbucks in the morning is nice as well. But if you have some expendable cash to justify $3 a month through my Patreon, that $3 goes a long way for me. So it is a way to make an impact with very little money. But again, you're in that Starbucks. Thank you guys so much, and thank you and we will see you in a few days, hopefully 2 days, with a polished video. It might be out tomorrow, but then I'd question it. So yeah, thank you guys for stopping by. Thank you for the love and support, and we will